Hello everyone and welcome to my editing bay, or as I like to call it, my laptop. Now I've been doing this now for 15 years, which is an absolutely frightening thought. My videos go all the way back to 2009 and even a couple a little bit beyond that, but technically that is where the first Bad Movie Beatdown episode originated. Not on YouTube though. Lots of people don't seem to realise that I've been around longer than my YouTube channel because back in the day, the olden days, I didn't post things on YouTube, I posted it on blip.tv, which got bought out by Maker, and then got bought out by Disney, who then strip-mined it for parts and then shut it down. The internet. I don't feel very comfortable celebrating milestones on this channel. I feel it's a bit self-congratulatory, and when the 10th anniversary rolled around, I just left the old website about a year or so prior, and I didn't feel like I had especially much to be proud of or to celebrate at that point in time, but 15 years is enough for a celebration, I think, especially since I didn't acknowledge it back in 2019. But of course, I don't want it to be too egotistical, so I decided to punish myself by watching my first Bad Movie Beatdown video. This isn't my first video, but it's, close enough. So we're gonna go right back to 2009 and watch me absolutely squirm at my younger self. Oh god, here we go. I'm about to press play now.
Hello and welcome to Bad Movie Beatdown.
Oh my god, so much hair. So much hair. Unfortunately, mate, you aren't keeping any of that. Well, not in the long run anyway. Appreciate it while it lasts. You might have noticed, by the way, that I have deliberately decided to wear the exact same t-shirt that I was wearing back in 2009. Arguably, it has aged better than I have. I'm not wearing the same jacket, however, because I think I threw that out at some point. So I've deliberately worn something that's maybe close enough to what I was wearing back in those days.
The Bad Movie Beatdown is for everyone who went to see a
Oh man, I drew these in MS Paint. MS Paint. Man, that's fantastic. Oh, and I've paused on a still frame of myself. I need to contextualise this a little bit, I think, somehow. When I was doing my early videos, I actually edited them in Windows Movie Maker. That's right. Windows Movie Maker, always known for its high quality production standards. This still frame here is literally pulled from out of the video somewhere. I've apparently pulled the most embarrassing image of myself humanly possible. So I did all my editing in Windows Movie Maker for a long time, an embarrassing amount of time. It was kind of split between Windows Movie Maker and Vegas. Everyone had a cracked version of Vegas back in those days, and I still use Vegas to this day, obviously a much later version of Vegas. But what I would do a lot of the time is that I would edit the videos in Windows Movie Maker and then finalize them in Vegas, especially if the videos were in widescreen. Windows Movie Maker was incapable of putting out a purely widescreen file. It would always put in an anamorphic flag, which meant that anytime you uploaded it directly like that, it would be squished and stretched. But it proved to be a good learning ground, and eventually, longer than perhaps it should have been, I did eventually stop using Windows Movie Maker.
Here is where I later my good friend
The Mr. T thing, what on earth?
Now you must be wondering, isn't this a bit nostalgic-like? Well, right you are, but no one in their right mind would consider any of these pieces of celluloid feces to be nostalgic.
I know what you're thinking at that point. Isn't that an iPod Touch? It is an iPod Touch. Okay, being serious now, yes, that is Doug on there, and, he gave me my big break back in the day by effectively bringing me onto the website. And I didn't start out making videos, I was actually writing articles. People were looking at the videos there, they weren't reading the articles, so I very quickly pivoted towards that. And I do have to admit that I am grateful for the opportunity that was afforded for me. It opened doors that wouldn't have happened otherwise, and I got to meet some fantastic people that I still call my friends to this day. I just wish it wasn't so conflicted in my mind because of what happened afterwards and the way things panned out. It didn't have to be that way. I try not to be bitter about it, but it is a shame, unfortunately. Now, I was talking there about the fact that when me and my friends Chris and Lewis were conceiving of the show, we were trying to think of ways to separate it from what Doug was doing as the nostalgia critic. And originally the conception of the show was that it was actually going to be a kind of a three-man show, that it was going to be split duties between us. But Chris and Lewis weren't really into the idea of kind of co-hosting, and so I ended up becoming the main host purely because I was the one that most wanted to do it. And so the early scripts, and certainly the early episodes, me and Chris would kind of split duties on editing them. So there were some that were edited by me, like this one. There were some that were edited by Chris, and we'd kind of pitch in all a little bit when it came to the writing. But there were other influences on the show aside from Doug. Harry Hill's TV burp was a big one, especially the kind of surrealism to some of the humour, but especially Charlie Brooker's screen wipe. Those were kind of my influences. I know a lot of my peers would kind of say things like Angry Video Game Nerd or Mystery Science Theatre, and those weren't really things I was into. Those were very much kind of American-centric ones, and as you can tell, a lot of my influences are very, very British.
Things will be a little bit different. Right, now
Oh, seamless edit there. Absolutely seamless edit there. You'll notice, incidentally, throughout this entire review, the white balance changes quite considerably. You'll also notice that the camera moves a little bit as well, and there's a reason for that. We didn't film this on a tripod. You see, one of our brilliant ideas when it came to the show was to film it shaky cam. A lot of this is actually shot handheld, and the reason that I came up with this stupid idea that we abandoned almost instantly was, again, we were trying to make ourselves look visually distinct from Doug. How about we do an edgy style? No, it just looks stupid. Buy a tripod, Matthew. And you did, and you still use it to this day because tripods hold value.
Let's hear it for the first film that I'm going to be reviewing. Drum roll, please. Pluto Nash!
Okay, so the reason I chose Pluto Nash was actually because I'd found the DVD in the 99p store. That was literally the origin story behind it, although I suppose there is a little bit more to it. You remember QuickTime movie trailers? I remember seeing the trailer for Pluto Nash back in the day, and I always wanted to see it, and so I kind of became fascinated when I found the DVD in the 99p store, and I remember watching it and thinking, this is absolutely terrible. And that's why I chose it as the first movie, is because I did have that connection to it as someone that wanted to see it, was kind of into Eddie Murphy as a kid growing up with things like Nutty Professor and Dr. Dolittle and Shrek, and then finally seeing it and going, oh, this is bad. This is really bad.
Since then, Murphy's career has been like riding a roller coaster.
So Lewis actually did the animation for this section. This is something that we wanted to do more of, but as anyone who has tried to do animation will quickly tell you, it takes a long time, and so this became something that we very quickly dropped.
They've had 20 years to perfect this script, apparently, so it must be good, right? Wrong!
You might have noticed that the audio quality is quite abysmal. I mean, that's just standard for an online video in 2009 because no one had a clue how to record audio, and arguably looking at this video, that might still be the case, even though I'm using a wireless microphone here. But I literally have the camera that I use to record this. This is a mini DV camera, and what you're hearing a lot of the time is the tape noise from the actual mechanism inside here. The battery in here is dead, so it's not going to spring out, unfortunately, but yeah. This camera was a cheap JVC model that I think was bought for me down Asda as a Christmas present. There's one big problem with this camera that really annoyed the piss out of me for the first couple of years that I used this before I trade up to an actual, SD card camera. You can't actually see yourself filming with it. Its unique feature is that the screen slides up and down, which is functionally useless in most applications, unless you're doing like this, like I'm doing a lot of low shots. I'm going up and look at the top of the skyscraper. Unless you were doing that, if you were trying to frame yourself or doing any kind of vloggy stuff, that ain't happening with this. That became a bit of a nightmare to try and frame myself, as you can again tell in several of my episodes where there's way too much headroom. Oh, and while I look at this pause frame, what's wrong with it? I'll tell you what's wrong with it. It's got a dead pixel in the bottom third of the frame. That little red dot there, yeah, that is a dead pixel on the camera sensor that has always been like that. It literally came out of the box new with a dead pixel. And so in all my old videos, have fun spotting the little red dot that periodically pops up and is especially identifiable against dark backgrounds like, say, my black jacket in this review.
And you know what? These effects are pretty good, but they're not really funny, are they? Ooh, prepare for Louis gravity. That's hilarious! That's really not.
And that we call straining for a criticism. The detail there of the world building, the prepare for lunar gravity, is not meant to be a joke. Some of it is in Pluto Nash, but it's not actually a joke. So I'm just reaching. And I did get better at this as I went along, as I realised, you don't have to make everything into a joke. If you can try and find a legitimate criticism and then turn that into the basis of humour, that tends to be how the joke actually works. Sometimes the joke lands better if you have a legitimate observation. I'm just saying.
There's a complex...
Can you tell which bits I shot considerably later with a tripod? Is it the bits that have the correct contrast because the camera isn't panicking because it's being thrown around like a rag doll? It's these bits right here. And the reason behind these new insert shots is that I actually sent it to people before it was released to try and get their opinion on it, and I sent it to Angry Joe. Yeah, that Angry Joe. He sent it back and he said, oh, I liked the review, but I didn't like the camera shaking. You need to reshoot the shots with the worst shakiness, and he was absolutely right on that. So Joe, you saved the video. Partially. But he gave me some sound advice. Use a tripod. So in the intervening time since this review, many people have covered Pluto Nash, one of them being my friend Alison, and I think that her review of Pluto Nash is much better than mine for the obvious reason that it's not her first video, but also because she had more info to deal with at that point in time, because people had spoken to some of the people involved with it. One of them was the guy that was hired to rewrite and kind of save the movie, except he didn't. But one of the things he suggested was writing a new opening. Knowing what I know now, it's very obvious to see that this opening portion of the movie is a total reshoot, that it's something that they came back and did later because they needed a way of introducing the characters. I think that this reshot opening is also terrible. It's got no energy to it whatsoever. In fact, it feels really odd, the kind of Scottish crooning thing. It's a gag that dies completely on its arse. And if I was reviewing it now, I would have said that. But of course I don't say that in this video because I didn't know it at the time. But that's the sands of time.
Pluto has now turned the bar into a new nightclub, imaginatively titled Club Pluto.
You might have also noticed there those kind of clanking sounds. That's because all the narration is actually filmed in camera, and this was a piece of quite bad advice that I took from Doug. Doug, back in the day, and perhaps still does, I don't know, he used to record all his voiceover directly to camera using the camera's microphone, which in one way, yes, that does make sense because you've got continuity of audio, but also if your camera's got terrible audio, that means your voiceovers also got terrible audio at the same time. And it seems to me from those clacking sounds that I decided to record my voiceover while we were hand holding the microphone so you can hear the lens cap scraping against the body. Fantastic!
She's come to see Pluto because her plot device, moon card, has expired.
I've been saying not a lot of very nice things about my work from 15 years ago, so I'm going to level that out and say I'm actually surprised at how fully formed in some ways that this video is in terms of its kind of commentary, and especially the way that it's edited. You can tell that there is a kind of attempt at pacing and rhythm, and one of the things that I would always do when I was cutting my videos together is I'd always pace it to match what I was saying in the voiceover. There was a comedy promo way back in the day that was like precision engineered comedy, and I believe that when it comes to editing, because editing is all about timing and it's all about, getting all the cuts in the right places. If you have like a split-second pause between a punchline, where it hangs in the air, that really can deflate a joke. The other thing that I'm actually going to be positive here is that in terms of recapping, it's not actually going, and then this thing happened, and then this thing happened, and then this thing happened, which was a really common trend. I always thought, okay, I need to just make the way that I'm describing things funny. I can't just be describing exactly what's happening on screen, otherwise it's just going to be boring. And it's really nice to see that I was doing that even in my very earliest review video. Oh man, oh man, oh god, oh man. Oh. The shot isn't even in focus. That's how bad the screen was on that camera. I couldn't even tell that it was completely out of focus, and I had no way of adjusting it. Oh man. Oh, okay. So a lesson that I very quickly learned, and you'll see this as the videos progressed over time, there was less and less skit-based comedy, and the skits in themselves were an attempt to differentiate themselves away from what Doug was doing. But I very quickly realised two things. One, I was very bad at them because sketch comedy is incredibly hard to do, let alone when you're working on a not even shoelace budget, strawberry shoelace budget, but also two, they really affected the pacing and rhythm of the videos. It stops the video dead, in my opinion, and it really doesn't work. And so over time, I moved away from doing the skits and realised just present it straight. I probably have had to replace the music in that last section of the video because I'm using the Indiana Jones theme. See, this is the thing with being on Blip TV back in the day. It was a Wild West. You could use as much footage from the movie as you wanted to. You could use copyrighted music like I used to for my theme song. Now we're on YouTube, you have content ID to worry about. I'm very, very rigorous about cutting down movie clips, being very cautious about the way I use footage, and also not using copyrighted music because nothing will get your video demonetized faster than that. And I'm certain I must have replaced this in the re-upload. I'm actually watching the original cut of the video. Contrary to what's stated in a certain film, it was not my first episode reviewing Equilibrium. It was Pluto Nash that was my first episode. Equilibrium was actually the third one released, but the second one shot. And so I did that review and it went down like an absolute lead balloon at the time. I mean, the backlash was really bad. And I actually remember at the time, I was genuinely considering just stopping at that point. What I took from that video is that my attitude was bad, in that I was making fun of the movie, but I also made fun of the fans in that review, and I feel like that was the wrong thing to do. Even if you don't like a movie, you shouldn't really be making fun of people because they like something. So if that's what I took away from it, I think that was a good lesson to learn. And I remember actually being told years later that when the old site hired people, they literally put in the manual, "Don't do anything contentious," in reference to that specific video. I was literally in the manual. Oh man, I am super young in this video. Super duper young. I was 18 in this video. I am 33 now. I look so baby-faced in the video.
Pluto rejects their offer. How surprising. So the gangsters decide to blow up his bar. Wait, what?
I love that plot point, by the way. Still doesn't make any sense. It still makes no sense why they would destroy the property that they were planning to purchase in the first place. And it's one of those plot holes that is so glaring. You can tell it's something that came from the fact the movie is rewritten over and over and over again, to the point where plot points don't line up anymore because they were associated with different things in earlier drafts, and it just ends up being weird vestiges of things that don't make any sense.
After a boring chase, Pluto manages to follow the hapless goon into an obvious trap.
Obviously, the way that I approach reviews on Projector and the way that I cover a lot of things now is quite different to how I did in this period, and that, again, that's because of the content ID, but also there's two different styles of kind of doing a review like this. This one is kind of like doing like a blow-by-blow of the entire movie and kind of talking about the plot. And there is advantages to that, because if people haven't seen the movie, they can follow along with it, and there's kind of this nice sense of deconstruction. But also, you're kind of locked into the movie's own pacing and its story rhythms. If the movie has a lot of stretches where not all that much is happening, that makes it very hard for you to actually glean material. The way that I approach things now is I kind of address things more by theme than by story and plot directly, especially because on Projector, I'm aiming it towards people that haven't necessarily seen the film yet, but don't want to have all the plot details spoiled for them. The way that I'm trying to do it on Projector is make it work so that if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but if you haven't seen the movie, you get a gist. But also, I just think that it's a better way of analysing something, kind of tackling, no, it's not just what it's literally about, it's what it's about.
Wait, where the hell did those guys come from? Were they there a second ago? Then why didn't they shoot Pluto in the back while he had the guy in front of him? This movie is so stupid! These actors are so poorly planned out!
You can definitely tell that I'm very inexperienced in front of the camera. I don't know how to deliver the lines properly, and so I'm kind of a bit awkward. I mean, I'm still not great in front of a camera, as you can already tell, but I do think I have improved on this. Certainly, I made it a point to try and get stronger with delivering my dialogue. Again, I don't think it helps the camera audio is so bad. One of the things that I'm noticing actually is the movie clips just in general are too long. Again, it's all about pacing and timing, and it's not just because of Content ID. The clips are just too long. It's meant to be a review. It's not meant to be a replacement for the movie. It's meant to be focused on my criticism of it. Putting more emphasis on me as opposed to showing movie clips is a way of prioritising that.
With a briefcase that had the letters WCW on it. I've got that briefcase here.
More sketch comedy stuff that doesn't need to be there. It just slows down the video because there is no insight at the end of the joke. It is just simply a gag for me to do prop comedy. And who likes prop comedy? This is very TV burp. Very TV burp.
Yeah, I better not open that again.
I don't even know what that object is I'm pulling out there. I don't know what I just pulled out of that briefcase. It's not visible very well on camera. I think it's a sock. I think.
The couple return to find Pam Grier inside. She's his mother? I'm having a hard time that Eddie Murphy came out as anywhere as cool as Pam Grier's womb.
That's a weird thing to say, Matt. That's a weird-ass thing to say. Wow.
Good evening, Mr. Vanderford. James here. Aren't you early, sir?
Oh, come on, John! What are you doing? What are you doing here?
Remember when this was considered to be an embarrassing thing for John Cleese to be in? Remember those days? Those innocent days?
A gag so nice they did it twice. They're really mining the comedy gold here. Actually, can I see that again? Oh, don't stop, baby.
Oh. With apologies to Dan Olsen, cringe. There's no other word for it. This makes me cringe. It's embarrassing. I'm pretty certain I must have heavily edited that for the sake of my own dignity out of the YouTube repost. I think that's a Charlie Brooker gag I'm copying there. It didn't work for him either. I feel like there was a thing at this point in time that everyone had to kind of prove they were kind of manly by being like, oh, I'm really horny and hypersexualized. Isn't that funny and hilarious? No, it just makes you look like a creepy perv. It's not funny. It's just gross. Just really gross. And I very quickly learned to never do that again.
Registered to Lunar Grand Hotel.
Isn't it nice of the gangsters to not only use a car that can be easily identified, but easily tracked back to them as well? Isn't that convenient? And unbelievably stupid!
Yeah, I feel like yelling in front of camera, it's very much of its time. I feel like as I've progressed, I've kind of moved away from that format. You might say that kind of style of reviewing hit a wall at a certain point, and I feel like people want kind of a much more kind of natural style of delivery, and I can understand why people still hold, you know, some of my old videos against me. I didn't really know what I was doing in some respects, and I do think that I was a bit overboard in my delivery, and that can be quite off-putting.
I like the way the car drifted back to the surface as if there's full gravity on the moon.
Wow, there's some weird editing on that line. I must have really screwed it up in the recording and hadn't realised until I was actually editing the video, and then I just had to chop it up just to get the line correct.
There is no sound in space!
Okay, genuinely a good joke there. Genuinely quite a funny joke. But wow, I really got close to the camera. I'm very sorry for that.
Bruno gets arrested because the plot says so.
Oh, I was even doing because the plot says so at this point. That became one of my little catchphrases, but didn't really catch on as much as, say, symbolism did. Yeah, I would often, as a point in my kind of voiceover narration, I would say, because the plot says so, just to offhandedly mention something that makes no sense unless it was purely for a story reason.
A pleasure to meet you, Pluto and Dina.
I met the perfect woman and then I had a clone.
Which one's which?
Who cares?
Oh my god, sexism is hilarious.
There's a couple of gags in this original version of the video that really don't stand up, but hey, at least that one does.
Rex's goons are waiting for him, which makes this bit entirely pointless.
Because Windows Movie Maker did not allow me to add a caption pointing in the air like that, because it only puts text captions down there. Such was the limitations of that time. I realised I haven't actually mentioned that that laptop you saw earlier in the video was my actual laptop that I was editing things at that point in time, and it had less than a gigabyte of RAM. I'm not joking. How much RAM do you think it has in it? 765 megabytes. When I was rendering out a video, it would take 6 hours for it to render. I'm amazed I got anything done, let alone that many videos.
And are we going to find out who Rex is? No.
So you got it all figured out, huh?
This twist, by the way, was the entire reason why I reviewed the movie, because it's an awful twist. It's a terrible movie-breaking twist. Not only does it make no sense, and not only is it just there for Eddie Murphy to play multiple characters, but also, just like, what an absurd twist to end the movie on. It's so bad that they have to spend 10 minutes explaining how the twist came to be in such laborious and extended fashion. Even if you were watching the movie, you wouldn't have been able to guess that the clone was that of Pluto. There was no hints beforehand. When Eddie Murphy swings around in his chair, you just go, oh, piss off.
The inept goons then bring in Dana and Bruno and soon get killed off because the plot requires them to.
Why does Rex kill those guys? I have no idea why he does that.
Never leave home without an undershirt, right, boss?
Oh no, not this lazy cliche.
Isn't that what you always say?
It's all the bad cliches. It's all the terrible ones with the bulletproof vests.
Fight starts up yet again, but eventually it comes to a very quick end once Rex gets thrown out of a window.
Eventually it comes to a very quick end. Eventually and quickly probably don't belong in the same sentence, Matthew.
I'm Film Brain, aka Matthew Buck. Good night.
Alright, I've given myself a lot of shit over the course of this video, but actually what I took rewatching this is I'm surprised how much of my style was already there. I clearly learned some good lessons about, timing and the writing in particular. My delivery definitely wasn't great, and the technical side of it is absolutely abysmal, but it's nice to see that I was actually doing a reasonably good job from the start, once I got rid of a few things that definitely didn't work, and I feel like I did eventually find my stride. The earliest episode that I think is really one that holds up is actually the On Deadly Ground video, which I think was 4th or 5th, somewhere around that. This isn't as embarrassing as I thought it would be. If I did have something to tell people if they were getting into videos, not only would I tell them just accept the fact that your early videos are probably going to suck, I would also say that you don't have to post them if you don't want to. No one's forcing you to post a video online. Just send them to your friends, get the feedback, and then when you feel like you've gotten to a good enough quality to actually show the rest of the world, you'll look like you've come out fully formed and know exactly what you're doing. And that's brilliant. It's more than what I did, which was effectively learning on the job, but considering that, I think I did pretty well for myself. And I just want to say a big thank you to all the people that have followed me through the years, whether you were here right at the very beginning or you just followed me fairly recently. It means the world to me, in all honesty. I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't have an audience, and I think I've got a pretty great one. I've received plenty of great insights and advice over the years from them, and it really is appreciated. So thank you so much. I genuinely cannot express how much you guys mean to me, and I hope that I've repaid your generosity with plenty of entertainment. No, I'm not as big as some of my other peers or even other people on the platform, but honestly, that doesn't really matter to me because success is how you personally measure it. The fact that I have an audience to begin with means that I'm a success, and that's all that I'm after. I wasn't into this for fame. I wasn't into this to become an internet celebrity or whatever. I just wanted to entertain people and to make people think critically about movies, and I feel like I've achieved that. I feel like I've done that. Thank you again for watching, and I hope to be back creating more great videos in the future. I don't know how long that will last, but I'm here for the ride. I'm Matthew Buck, fading out.